What's going on, guys? It's Friday. This is usually whenever I harvest my sprouts. I put the seeds in there on Sunday, as y'all got to see with me, and I harvest them on Friday. This actually, even though it's a lot, it's plenty. I do it every week, so this Sunday I'll do more seeds, reharvest next Friday. This is plenty for a whole week, obviously, because you're just putting it little bits on your food here and there. So it's actually quite a bit. I mean, it's very dense. But the thing is that I actually get almost like 30% more, 25% more than what I have here. And the reason that it didn't grow as well is because whenever you put 2 tablespoons of the broccoli sprout seeds in here, you want to measure out 6 tablespoons of water. Because whenever you're going to let that soak for 8 hours and then you're going to rinse it out or drain it out, I did not measure that. In fact, I just kind of filled it up without, as y'all got to see on the video, and I filled it up to like right here, and I let that sit for, those 8 to 10 hours or whatever. And it may still just be too much water, even though it's still just in the seed. It may drown out the seed's potential. So you still do want to put a 2 tablespoons of broccoli sprout seeds to a 6 tablespoons of water ratio. You want to leave that in there soaking for about 8 hours or overnight, no problem. And then you want to drain it. And then every morning and every night, you simply want to rinse it, where you put water in and then you drain it immediately. And then you put it in a dark, dry place. So you want to make sure you drain them every time perfectly to where all the water comes out. Put them in a dark place. And you just want to get some type of, this is a sprouting jar, but some type of thing that has this type of mesh where you can continually turn it over to where the water will come out, but the seeds and the sprouts won't come out. So, now I've got all this for, the next week, which is plenty, and then we'll go at it again. So I hope that this video helps you guys if you've been sprouting. I've sprouted in the past and wondered why, actually me and my dad used to sprout a couple years ago, and we wondered why the sprouts weren't producing as much as we thought they would. And the reason was we would actually put them in the sunlight. We would leave them in a window, and it was not a dark place. The dark, dry place is really where these just begin to overflow. And the first 3.5 days, you won't get a lot. You may only get it to like right here. It's the last 36 hours that they just multiply, multiply, multiply. So be patient with it, and I hope you like it. What's going on, guys? Tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and do a high protein pesto pasta. Okay, so for the pesto, I actually make my own pesto here on the land. We actually grow our own basil, and the basil plant is absolutely phenomenal. But as we've been going into winter, a lot of these foods are not being grown right now for winter. So what I went ahead and did a couple months ago was I actually made a ton of pesto and put it in the freezer for nights like tonight. There's this pesto sauce that's been in the freezer. And so I'm gonna go ahead and defrost this pesto, but I'll go ahead and share with you the recipe. I actually get it from Dr. Michael Greger. It's 2 cups of basil leaves, which, by the way, whenever I do it, it's a very, very strong flavored pesto. Whenever I do the basil leaves, I pack it down for 1 cup and pack it down for the 2nd cup. A 4th cup of fresh toasted walnuts, 2 cloves of garlic, a 4th peeled lemon, a 4th teaspoon of lemon zest, a 4th teaspoon of turmeric, a 4th cup of pinto beans, a 4th cup of water or liquid from the bean can. I personally prefer to use the liquid from the pinto bean can. 1 tablespoon of white miso. If you're not familiar with miso, go to like a health food store, a Sprouts, Whole Foods, or if you're up here, Natural Grocers may have it. I'm not sure exactly, but like a Pioneer Co-op will have it. And then some pepper for taste. And then you'll just blend it in a food processor and put it over whatever food you're wanting to use it, whether you're wanting to do a pesto pizza or a pesto pasta. And so to defrost it, I'm actually just gonna put some hot water. I'm just gonna let it fall on it for a little bit and defrost the sauce. And while that's defrosting, because I'm actually going to do tofu with my pasta tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and prepare the tofu, put it in the oven to bake. That's gonna take a while, so I'll do that. Then I'll do the pasta. By then the pesto and everything will be good, and the timing should be about right. And I'll just cut it into thin slices. That way it really cooks evenly all the way through. Tofu, if you don't do that, you've got to cook it extra long. And so it's a little bit better sometimes if you make it in thinner slices, which is why I cut it in half in the first place, and now I'm just making thin slices again. And what I'll do tonight is I'll just kind of mix up a couple different flavors. I'll do cumin powder, I'll do this sweet and smoky, and I'll do some crushed red pepper. Doing like a fried tofu is actually really good. You can get some breading, but the stuff that I usually use for my breading, I actually don't have here at the moment, so I'm just gonna do some seasonings and bake it. With this meal, you can also do beans if you want. Tonight I chose not to do the beans. I just decided to do tofu instead. And same thing, I'll go ahead and pour some cumin. And then I'll spray this. And I haven't put the red pepper flakes in yet because I'm gonna wait till I put these in here. And then I'll cover them with that. And I won't be shy with the red pepper flakes. And these I'll actually go ahead and bake pretty high at 400. And we'll probably keep those in there for like 40 minutes, 40 or 45 minutes. We'll try to get them a little more crispy. And then now what I'll go ahead and do is get my vegetables prepared that I'm gonna have with the pasta. And the pasta that I'm gonna do tonight is actually a red lentil rotini. I also have a whole wheat rotini, but I'm gonna go ahead and do this and have that probably for the next few days, which is obviously just gonna be a really high protein meal. I mean, with this, you know, I could easily have 40 or 50 grams of protein in this meal with this, with the vegetables, and with the tofu. So once again, just always really kind of easy to get in a sufficient amount of protein, especially if you're training hard and doing those types of things. And if you're not training hard, obviously it's definitely enough protein. Yeah, so while the tofu is cooking, it's baking right now, and while the pesto sauce is defrosting right now in the sink with hot water, in a little bit I'll do the red lentil pasta, but that'll be last because it'll only take a few minutes. So right now I'm just preparing the vegetables, and what I'm gonna do for vegetables tonight is broccoli, I'll do some carrot slices, and onion as well. And then once everything is done, I'll chop up a couple garlic stuffed olives, throw that in the pasta. And so right now we're just chopping everything, getting it prepared, and then I'll put it on the stove top and cook it for a little bit. One thing that I am a big believer in now, especially as it comes to broccoli and things like onions, Dr. Will Bolshewitz, who is a very respected gastroenterologist, he, as well as Dr. Michael Greger, discuss what is kind of being known as the chop and stop method, where when it comes to sulforaphane-like foods such as broccoli, Brussels sprouts, things of that nature, and then also onions as well, which is not for sulforaphanes, it's for a different enzyme, but you chop and then you let it rest for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. And you're actually allowing certain enzymes to be produced through the food that if you were to just immediately cut it and cook it, it would not give time for those enzymes to be produced. So I'm actually gonna let it sit for just a few minutes, which is why I cut them first. If I don't get an opportunity to just let it sit for 10 minutes, because if I'm making lunch or something and I'm in the office with meetings and different things like that, then, if I don't have this stuff prepared beforehand, which happens quite a bit, especially because I'm generally working from home, if I don't have this stuff prepared beforehand, I don't worry about it. But a lot of times too, I actually eat, things like this raw. I'll cut it up and I'll just throw it in my burritos. And so if you're eating it raw, that's a great way to get it too. But if you are gonna cook it, then it is best to do the chop and stop method. If you don't get to do that, well, it's not the end of the world. Okay, we'll go ahead and put them in here. All right, and so whenever I cook my vegetables, if I'm baking them, I don't really like to put it on too high of a heat. And if I'm cooking them on the stove, it's really at the highest, especially if I'm not in a rush. I put them on a medium or like a low medium because I really try to preserve the nutrients that are gonna be within my food. Like I said, especially if I'm not rushing, like tonight, obviously I'm not rushing to do anything, so. And also, one of the things that I've just kind of learned over time, this isn't something, in my opinion, to stress about, but it is something I have learned over time, which I've been thankful of, and I just happen to be mindful of just naturally now at this point, is learning how to put foods together in a synergistic manner. And so, for example, there are certain foods that may be fat soluble. So, for example, turmeric. Turmeric I put in my rice cooker, allow it to cook within them, and turmeric is fat soluble. And so, if you eat it, a lot of it is just going to go right through you. You're just going to pee it out because it's fat soluble. It's not allowing anything to absorb within your body. I know we think, no, if we're eating it, it'll be digested and absorbed and so on and so forth. It's really not the case with many foods. And so with turmeric, it's fat soluble, so adding some type of fats, whether it's nuts, avocado, these different types of things, olives, these are good things to have with those meals. The other thing with turmeric, though, is that if you actually add even a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, it increases its bioavailability or its absorption by 2,000%. Well, we have similar things with like goji berries. So goji berries, I don't necessarily eat alone. You'll notice that I have them in my Superfood trail mix, where I have nuts, I have cacao nibs, I have different fats that allows it to be synergistic. So goji berries on their own are great, but if it's paired with something like a healthy fat like that, it's going to actually allow its absorption to be better. It's going to be better for you than if you didn't eat it with something like that. Well, we have similar things with tomatoes. We have similar things with carrots. There are just certain compounds within the foods that are going to be better if they were paired with such and such. So, like I said, tonight I'll have some garlic stuffed olives, whereas sometimes I might do avocado. You know, if I have bell peppers and this kind of stuff, I might, slice up avocado, put it in the pasta. So you just kind of pick and choose what you're wanting to have for that night. But like I said, it's nothing to get, overly stressed about. These are just little things that you acquire over time, and then eventually you don't even think about it. You're not thinking about what can I pair this with or whatever. It just kind of comes naturally as you start being in the kitchen enough and doing these things. The other thing too is, I'm having the garlic stuffed olives, but also remember in my pesto sauce, I actually have walnuts in there as well. So I'm getting some fats in there as well that's coming together. But now, as this is sitting on the stove, I just turned this water to boil the pasta. It's on high, so we're gonna boil that here in just a moment. And like I said, this is a red lentil rotini pasta. There's chickpea pastas, there's whole wheat pastas. You can get all different shapes, flavors, stuff like that. So I just kind of mix it up and play with it, So whatever you like, go ahead and do it. The flavor is not much different, and honestly, the texture is really not much different. As long as you cook it through, you're not going to notice a huge difference. The difference is that you may not be getting a bunch of other ingredients that you may or may not want. And then also in this case too, if you're able to kind of get a little bit more protein with different things, especially if you're training pretty seriously, then that's just another benefit. All right, so the water has come to a boil. I'm just gonna dump the whole box in. It cooks in about 7 minutes. I tend to go, a couple minutes over, maybe 1, 2, 3 minutes over, just to get them a little bit more tender. That will be good for a handful of meals. It's a smaller box, but it will be good for me for, 3 to 4 meals for what I'm doing. And I just took off the vegetables, so I'll let those sit, cool down for a little bit. The tofu shouldn't be much longer. So we'll just stir this up a little bit. Like I said, I don't like to really, really heavily cook them. I just kind of get them a little hot, slight cook to where they're just not completely raw. And to me, that's enough, especially if you chop up the food enough. You don't need it cooked too long.
Maybe talk about real quick, just recap on the misconception of cooking your vegetables for too long, how that kind of destroys some of the nutrients.
Yeah. Because if you, actually Darren O'Lean talks about this quite a bit in his book. You can just search Darren O'Lean. Actually, Darren O'Lean and Zac Efron have a phenomenal TV show on Netflix. I know season 1 is on there, and I know they filmed season 2, but I don't know if season 2 is on there yet. It's called Down to Earth, and they go around the world and they're, eating different foods. Darren O'Lean is a whole food plant-based. Zac Efron's not, but they're, just traveling around the world, trying these different foods, exploring different things. It's an awesome show. It's not just about food. It's much broader than that. But Darren O'Lean, just search him on, Instagram, whatever. On Amazon, though, he has a book, and in his book, he actually goes into great detail on many different things, all things health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, hydration, detoxification, so on and so forth. But within the book, he talks about the reason why organic is important in the sense of maintaining nutrients, how the things that are not organic, how you can lose 80 to 90% of the nutrients, but also the same thing with cooking. How overcooking foods and what that does to your food, how it loses the enzymes, the nutrients it loses, so on and so forth. So that really began to open my eyes over the last couple of years, just because for me, it was just about getting the job done. So I would just burn the food, get it as quick as possible. And now I try to be much more mindful of that whenever I'm cooking. So the vegetables are ready, pasta's ready, pesto sauce is ready, the tofu is ready. And so we've got it nice and crispy. It could go a little bit crispier if you want it, but to me this is perfectly fine. So we'll put a meal together and we'll show you what we're working with. So out of ignorance then, So man, these are actually really crispy. We've got our meal here. We've got the pasta, the veggies are underneath. We got some olives, we got the tofu, we got the pesto sauce. And sometimes I'll do some, like plant-based healthy garlic bread. I'm not gonna do the bread tonight, but just to have like some type of cracker, stirring around some things, I'll do this Wasa brand. I always get this brand, but there's different flavors other than sourdough, and I've tried multiple of them. The rye one, the multigrain one, the sourdough, they're all awesome. So I'll just take a couple of these. I'll just use 2 of these here, and that's gonna be dinner tonight. So it's Friday night. I do a live broadcast for Revelation Church every Saturday morning now at 10 a.m. I've been on my sabbatical for a few months, but last week I did my first broadcast back Saturday at 10 a.m. I have a broadcast system that I use, which will bring together the YouTubes, the Facebook, social medias, all into one platform. And at 10 a.m. I do a live broadcast. And so Friday night is generally whenever I get everything prepared. So I always set up this tripod has been a huge blessing to our ministry and really for anywhere that I go. And it's taken time for me to kind of learn everything technologically because I'm very technologically challenged. So I'll basically get everything set up tonight as far as the angle goes. That way in the morning I can just focus on my study time, prayer, relaxing, going on a walk with Kaya, and it's all good. I just set up the broadcast. The broadcast is actually already set up for 10 a.m. tomorrow. But this way I can get to see the way the camera's looking and making sure everything's level. And so here, you'll see that I already have it scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow. I have multiple Facebook pages, the YouTube page, and it all accumulates here where I get to see every comment as it's going on live tomorrow during the broadcast, whether they comment from Facebook, from either Facebook, whether they're on YouTube watching and commenting, it all comes here to me, and I can always reply and do whatever I need to do back. And so here I'll just be able to see exactly where everything is. So now for the most part, as far as the setup goes, everything is set up for the morning. So I'll just bring the desk back down and take the camera off and make sure everything's charged for tomorrow. Because for our broadcast, not only do we use this camera for the broadcast, but then we actually use the Lumix for the teachings later in the day, which are not by broadcast. This is something that, like, say, myself and my very dear friend, Pastor Todd, will actually do a joint teaching together, where I'll set this up, and it won't be live. We'll actually upload it later in the week, but that will be later in the day. And we use different cameras for different reasons. We'll just make sure everything's charged tonight, everything's prepared. Then Saturday morning, we wake up and we're ready to go for ministry. So every night I have a superfood tea, and they're similar to the other superfoods I have in the sense of, like, the packaging and where I get them. Like in the morning, you'll have seen I do chlorella, black maca, spirulina. Well, at nighttime, I have ashwagandha. You've probably heard of ashwagandha in some way, shape, or form. It's really, really known. This ashwagandha, it's an adaptogen, and so it's something that really helps your body adapt to change, adapt to stress. You know, for example, if I'm traveling a lot and I'm not getting a lot of sleep, because I wake up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning, and if I'm traveling late at night, I get somewhere at 11 or midnight, and I still wake up at 4 or 4:30. Obviously, it's a completely different environment. It's a completely different change. I'm getting off of planes or long drives, but still waking up early. Adaptogens help your body adapt to these things, especially if you're going to weather changes. You know, if I'm in Houston or Dallas versus up here in Iowa, where the weather is totally different, it allows your body to adapt to these things. But ashwagandha is actually incredible. It's known as the ashwagandha. Basically, what it literally means is the smell of a horse, or horse smell. And the reason that it has this reputation with horses especially is because of what it does for health and fitness and putting on muscle, burning fat. It's an incredible superfood. So do your research on ashwagandha. And by the way, all my superfoods come from the same place, Superfood Village. I actually have multiple superfood outlets. Darren O'Lean, in his book that I've talked about before, which you can get on Amazon, he actually in the back of his book has his best sources for superfoods. I use Superfood Village because I know Lou, the owner. So if you call Lou, tell him Pastor Nick sent you, and he'll probably give you a nice little discount. He's always done good work for me. I've really liked their products. There are other places you can go to for, like, things like spirulina, or which I have in the morning. There's one called moringa. Moringa, I don't just get from any source. If I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it from a very specific source, because moringa and spirulina, if you mess with them in a certain way, it'll really just ruin what it is. Moringa is known as it's called the Nevidai. And the reason is because they say if you have it, you'll never die. And so it's called the vitamin tree. I don't have that here with me, but at night I do the ashwagandha. I do ginger root powder, which especially for athletes is incredible for anti-inflammatory and so many other different things, muscle pain. And then I have these three, which I really enjoy. I have chaga mushroom. I have reishi mushroom, which you may have heard of reishi mushroom. Okay, reishi mushroom is actually pretty popular. These two really, really help with going to sleep. I mean, these things will knock you out when you go to sleep, and you'll get a very, very deep sleep. But I've got to tell you, my favorite one, honestly, I think, has got to be lion's mane. And the reason is lion's mane is a neurotropic, which means that it really helps cognitively. And I'm going to be honest with you, I just started this within the last, I don't know, probably 4 to 6 months maybe, that I really remember. And it was crazy what happened within 48 hours of this. These other superfoods, you know, generally you need to be on them, especially like ashwagandha, for like 6 to 8 weeks before you really start to notice serious things going on. But the lion's mane, I remember within like 48 hours, you know, I wake up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning, and the second that my alarm goes off, I'm not sitting there dazed and confused and tired and needing coffee, although I do drink coffee in the morning, but not needing coffee to get my body running. What this did for me cognitively was absolutely incredible. Like I said, it's a neurotropic, so that's actually what it is used for. And so I have it at night, In the morning, I am just on top of it, and throughout the day, really on top of it. I mean, to stay very, very focused with study, with linguistics, with ministry, with meetings, doing things with nutrition, being able to work out, have all the mental clarity. I mean, even right now, you know, for it to be, you know, almost 8 o'clock, and, you know, I'm still able to really stay focused if I was to go and study or do this, that, and the other. Incredible, and definitely notice the difference. So that's what I'm actually going to make right now. And so what I'll do with the tea maker is just turn it on here so it starts heating up. And the amounts that I do are pretty much the same for all of them except for the ashwagandha. The ashwagandha is the only one that has a little bit of a different ratio. And so for the chaga, I'll do about half a teaspoon. You don't need more than that. But I also say you don't want to do less. You want to be pretty precise whenever you do these. The reishi, half a teaspoon. Lion's mane, half a teaspoon. And Superfood Village, Lou, he's out there in Houston. But like I said, even with me being out here in Iowa, he still takes care of me. Ginger, you don't need half a teaspoon. You can actually get away with a quarter. But I do half a teaspoon anyway. And then ashwagandha, I do a full teaspoon. And so now the thing is, you always want to make sure, especially with most of these, like the ashwagandhas and you know, your mushrooms, you want to make sure that you do it with. That's why I use the tea maker. If you don't have a tea maker, just boil some water, because they're hot water extracts, which means that you have to have this hot boiling water to pull out the extract of whatever the compound is. For this case, chaga, reishi, lion's mane, ashwagandha, and you don't want to waste it. You know, you don't want to just say, oh, I don't have time, I'm going to put it in cold water. You don't want to waste it. It's a hot water extract, so you want to do it in that way. And so this is something I have every single night. It also keeps you really full too. So, you know, I eat an early dinner. Generally, I eat dinner about 5 or 5:30. Then, you know, I'll take, you know, Kai out a little bit, take care of some other stuff in the office. At about 7:30, I'll do this, and I'll be very set for the rest of the night. And I'll start feeling the chaga and everything else. I'll be able to go to sleep, you know, by 9 o'clock, especially because I wake up about 4:30. So this is a routine that I do every single night. All right, so the water's done boiling. Now I'll just stir that up and let it cool down. Now I just want to make it very clear that I do not drink this for pleasure. I do not sip on it. I let it cool down completely. So I'll just let it sit there. I'm not, you know, I'll make it around like 6:30 or 7, and I'll just kind of go and do whatever else I'm doing. Let it sit for an hour, whatever, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Whenever it's completely cooled down, and I chug it. Just like I do with my lemon or lime water in the morning. I don't just sip on it, I chug it. It doesn't taste amazing. It doesn't taste bad, but it's definitely not something for pleasure. So I just down it real quick, and that's it. It's really more for its health benefits. It's super simple, and the benefits that I get from it, I feel that the positives outweigh the simple taste of it extremely.